Thank you very much. Thank you for having the opportunity to participate. This is one of my absolute favorite topics. And so on basis on several years of research about the campaigns that states conduct ahead of Security Council elections, I will take on, well, my contribution will basically be a bird's eye perspective, and I will try to possibly derive some insights about how the Danish how this Danish challenge can be approached. Yeah, and if according to plan, we will have a book by Brill in the autumn with more insights on this. I will put the current Danish candidature first in a historical comparative perspective, and then in a Nordic perspective, and then in a Nordic-Baltic perspective. So that's kind of my approach, and I will structure my talk on those three levels. So starting with the pattern over time, I think it is helpful to and important to be aware that not all states have the capacity to do this, that that Denmark is about to do. Close to, I think, more than it is more than 50 states who have never been elected members of the Security Council, and in fact, it is also quite challenging also to very wealthy middle-range powers to be successful on every candidature as well. So comparing with other states with a multilateral backbone, such as the Nordic states, Canada here serves as an example of where you don't want to be, where I think they have 3 failed candidatures since the post-Cold War era. So this is my point is this is challenging, and not only to small states but to all states. This is a highly competitive game, and but small states are overrepresented in the group of never elected states. That's clear. But Denmark is a member of the elected seats are associated to UN regional groups, as most of you know, I think, and Denmark has an advantage as member of the Western European and others group, like the other Nordic states as well. Most states who are member of this regional group have served on at least one occasion in the Security Council, and this can be compared, for instance, to members of the Asia and Pacific regional groups, where who has a very high intense competition between regional powers who have claims for future permanent membership of the Security Council, with India and Japan, I think, as the most prominent example. And what these states do is that they launch candidatures for elected membership of the Council on very frequent occasions. Japan is kind of the successful example, on top of the entire game, actually, and is currently serving as a member of the Security Council for the 12th time. So this is just to put it in kind of a historical perspective here. And then if we move on to kind of the Nordic perspective, I think most of you are also aware that the Danish candidature is part of a Nordic turn-taking order. So as members of the Western Europeans and others group, they have an agreement to launch a candidature on every second election. So that means every 4th year or so there is a Nordic state candidature. And while these candidatures are on behalf of the single state, the Nordic states support and help each other on this kind of difficult challenge in terms of sharing knowledge on useful strategies for the candidature and how to carry out the campaign, and also sharing experiences, of course, on how to execute the membership. So this is, and Denmark is kind of entering at the good moment in terms of from the Nordic perspective, I would say, because there is the There is the Swedish the Swedish membership, and now most recently also the Norwegian membership of the Security Council. But before that, that was actually a decline in kind of the Nordic success here. There was 2 failed Nordic candidatures in a row. Iceland in 2007 and Finland in 2012. So, but now there's a kind of a positive trend here. And a difference between the Swedish and the Norwegian campaign and the Danish campaign is that Sweden and Norway both faced contested slates, right? So, but Denmark, the slate is clean for the election for next year. I think Greece is the only other candidature, and there are 2 available seats on behalf of the group. But so on one hand, this is a better situation for Denmark, and on the other hand, if I put myself in the shoes of the people at the Danish MFA, what I would want to avoid in the June election next year, when I'm present in the General Assembly, is first, I would like to avoid an electoral result that is that shows weaker support compared to the previous Nordic candidatures. So it requires a 2/3 majority, but I would like to have like a pattern that corresponds with the number of votes that Norway and or Denmark got in the past. Also, I would try I will want to have an electoral result that corresponds with or is higher than the other candidate, right? And this is, of course, to maximum kind of the momentum and the support that the membership has within the UN diplomatic community. So that is kind of, even though the slate is uncontested, there are still very good reasons for carrying out a very ambitious and carefully carrying out the campaign, so to speak. So, and then moving on to the Nordic-Baltic perspective, there is also, I mean, not as integrated and not as institutionalized as maybe the Nordic coordination or cooperation, but there is also a network between the Nordic and the Baltic states in New York, as I think you are well aware of also. And my point here is that this accounts for a very rare representative opportunity on behalf of a small group, on behalf of a group of small states with a shared sense of community, in the sense that the Baltic states belong to another regional group. So there is elections on odd and even calendar years. And this enables I would say, a very rare opportunity to much more extensive representation in the Security Council compared to any other groups of small states in the world. So if we look since 2017, there has been a Nordic or a Baltic member of the Security Council in 5 out of those 6 years. And in 2021, both Norway and Estonia were present in the Security Council, which I also think is like a kind of a unique competitive edge, so to speak. And if I know there is also, Latvia has launched a candidature for the election in I have to count the years, 2025 then, I guess. And then if that candidature is successful as well, as I expect the Danish candidature to be, there will be a kind of a double membership again in 2026. And I think that the Latvian, I've seen that there is one more candidature for this single seat on behalf of the Eastern European and other groups. But I think Latvia has a really good chance of turning out successful here as well. So I think this is something to consider very carefully, this kind of possible advantage. And I think Shamala talked really, I was really intrigued to listen to kind of the details on the E10 coordination and this interesting patterns that we have seen in the past couple of years. And I mean, in terms of from a research perspective, what we identify is that the E10 tried to very deliberately use the available instruments to kind of to manage and maneuver in the Security Council and to have like an efficient interaction with the permanent members. And so using the monthly chairmanship, carefully selecting the topics for the thematic debates, the pen holderships, as Jamala mentioned as well. And I think what I'm getting at here is an opportunity to kind of have a very systematic coordination between elected memberships over time, given the Nordic Baltic groups group coordination. So that's kind of an additional instrument that not all elected members in the Security Council have access to. And I think everyone would agree that the opportunity for one single elected membership to make like have a dramatic impact on the work of the Security Council is very limited. But in terms of constantly working over time and very deliberately trying to work with to have an impact to change working methods and so on, that has some potential for the future, even though it won't be noticeable within 2 years. So that is also kind of one perspective that I think is important to take, given the opportunity that for Denmark to a term in the Security Council. And I think that's my main message for now.